Hello, this is Lady Boulay, and I hope you're having a lovely day. Thank you for your support. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. Thank you for your comments, and thank you for your thumbs up. Thank you for all you do to support the channel. And yes, we are commanded to love one another, whether we want to or not, or whether we agree with each other or not. And today, I have some very good news. A few days ago at the BAFTA Awards in London, the Brits found themselves in the middle of a cultural firestorm when a man with Tourette's syndrome shouted the N-word during the ceremony right as two black men, including American actor Michael B. Jordan, were presenting. At first, British institutions seemed ready to brush the moment aside, attributing it solely to Tourette's and moving on without acknowledging the impact of the slur. They weren't going to say anything, and we later learned that they could have edited it out and they wouldn't do it. Since they didn't edit it out and they were bold enough to let it air, Black Americans had something to say about that. Black people made it clear that even if the outburst was involuntary, and it may have been, the word itself carries a painful history and the moment deserved more than silence. Pressure mounted on both the BBC and BAFTA to address the harm, not just the cause. They wanted to pin it all on Tourette's syndrome and say there was no apology needed. But Black Americans said, oh yes, there is an apology needed and one is coming. Because at the end of the day, Tourette's syndrome is a condition, and it's an unfortunate condition that many people have, but it does not give you vocabulary. Tourette's syndrome did not give him that N-word. That was already in him from his environment. So what happened is that pressure mounted on both the BBC and the BAFTA Awards to address the harm and not just the cause that was done. Harm was done. Those two men had to stand there and maintain their dignity as a derogatory slur was hurled at them for no reason. They were guests at that awards show and should have been treated with the utmost respect. And again, Tourette's syndrome does not give you vocabulary. It does not put a word in your mouth. That word has to already be in your head. And so there was no reason for them to just let the moment pass. Matter of fact, they should have edited out like Warner Brothers asked them to do. So that's when the wake-up call hit. The assumption that the incident could be quietly dismissed didn't hold up, at least not to Black Americans, and not even to Hollywood, because Hollywood had already seen it. It was pre-aired, so Hollywood had already had a chance to see that part of it and called over there and asked them to edit that out, and they wouldn't do it. And that's the problem. That's the sticking point. Even if the man couldn't help himself, which he may not have been able to help himself for yelling it out, but they thought, well, we're going to just ride it out on him having this condition. But no, that did not work. It exposed a cultural blind spot among the British people. And that blind spot has been there ever since they came into contact with African and Black people. So the gap between intent and impact and the expectation that institutions should acknowledge harm even when no one meant to cause it. So that's the thing. Maybe and I'm not going to say he didn't intend to do it, because that man is 40, 50 something years old. So he's been around long enough to know. He's not a dumb person. He just has that condition. So this wasn't the wake-up call the British expected. but it was one many felt was overdue. So the British didn't think they were going to have, I just love, this is the sweetest spot, because they didn't think they were going to have to apologize. But when we say Black Americans run the culture, we run the culture. And Hollywood insisted that they apologize, even as Black Americans dragged them up and down every social media platform that they could. So nobody was buying that whole thing about he couldn't help it. And even if he couldn't help it, they could have done something about it, and they didn't. I wanted to know a little bit more about Tourette syndrome, so I did ask the co-pilot, and this is what the co-pilot said. Tourette's is a neurological condition involving involuntary movements and sounds called tics. Most tics are simple, blinking, throat clearing, facial movements. A small percentage of people experience coprolalia, which involves involuntary utterances of taboo or socially inappropriate words. I don't know if they just added that after this man, did what he did. These words do not reflect the person's beliefs, character, or intentions. They are symptoms, not choices. So, yes, the outburst may have been involuntary, but the emotional weight of the word didn't disappear just because the cause was, they say, medical. Well, Black people didn't buy that because, again, he went through the whole night and he didn't get the urge to yell that out until two Black people got up there. So that, for many Black people, including myself, was very suspicious. Now, the escalation came in how people responded to the incident, not the incident itself. In the UK, some seem to treat the moment as an unfortunate but explainable medical event. Case closed. They weren't going to say anything else about it. But in the US, especially among Black Americans, the reaction was very different. People expected an acknowledgement of harm, not just an explanation of the cause. They wanted recognition that the word carries a violent history and that hearing it on a major broadcast is not something to gloss over. So pressure grew. Social media amplified the outrage. Actors, commentators, and viewers demanded accountability. Eventually, both the BBC and BAFTA issued apologies, not just for the incident, but for the hurt it caused. And that's where the wake up call landed. It wasn't about blaming a man with a medical condition, it was about institutions learning that impact matters as much as intent. Silence can feel like dismissal. Communities affected by slurs deserve acknowledgement even when no one meant harm. The BAFTA weren't prepared for that level of cultural scrutiny, but the world is changing. Audiences expect empathy, not excuses. Nobody is blaming the man's condition. Nobody was blaming that, and nobody wanted him to apologize for his condition. But what people wanted was for the BAFTA and the BBC to take responsibility for what happened. They had an opportunity to edit that word out of that broadcast, and they didn't do it. And many people think they left it in just so they could get clicks and views. But they're not used to Black people pushing back on what they do, because even the Black British admit that they don't push back. They just take it. But that's not the way we rolled here in the United States. In the end, this wasn't a scandal, it was a mirror. A mirror held up to an institution, the BBC and the BAFTA Awards, that thought it could explain away a slur without addressing the people hurt by it. But the world pushed back. Black audiences pushed back. Hollywood pushed back. And suddenly, the BAFTA had to confront something they didn't expect: accountability. This was a wake-up call they never asked for, but they absolutely needed. And just as a side note, there were people in the UK and in the United States who told Black people there wasn't going to be an apology because that was his condition and he couldn't help what he had said. And Black people said, we beg to differ. There will be an apology, because when Hollywood speaks, All of them listen because the BBC, from whatever they think they are, if Hollywood doesn't back them, they don't have anything going. So the apology was always going to come. Okay, y'all, let me know what you think about this video. Give me a thumbs up. Keep warm out there and have a good evening.